Welcome back to the Hub on CGTN. Now let's look at the impact on the region and beyond by the changes in Pakistani politics. We're now joined by Anil Trigunayat, former Indian ambassador to Libya, Jordan and Malta from New Delhi, India. Welcome, Ambassador. He's also the chairman currently of the Confederation of Educational Excellence. And in Beijing, China, we're joined by Rong Ying, Vice President of the China Institute of International Studies. Vice President Rong, good to have you with us again. Gentlemen, let's talk about the relations between Pakistan and India, first of all. Ambassador, if I can go to you. During Mr. Imran Khan's era, during his tenure, there was bad blood between India and Pakistan, let's face it. But after, Ms. Sharif's election, there was some very cordial and friendly exchanges of words, of statements. We already saw that. What do you think the relations between the two can evolve? How do you foresee that? Because we know that Sharif family and India have had very cordial relations.
Well, at the outset, I would like to wish our friends in Pakistan well and felicitate them on the smooth transition of power. Even though there was a lot of drama in that. But at the end of the day, I would say the judiciary and democracy prevailed to an extent. That's a positive sign. Both the countries and the region actually are facing a lot of development challenges. And those challenges have to be met not by war, but by peace, by dialogue. But my Prime Minister has already congratulated Prime Minister Sharif on his election and expressed the desire that India wants peace and stability in the region, free of terror. That is a very clear word. So we want peace, we want to discuss all issues with them positively, and there should be peace between the two countries. India prefers dialogue and diplomacy. But at the same time, the basic problem is, and secondly, if the army or the deep state in Pakistan is ready to basically desist from using the state-sponsored terrorism, then I think that things can move forward. And there's a good sign at the moment, as you rightly mentioned, that Prime Minister Sharif is a good administrator and he's more pragmatic. And therefore, if he's probably have the backing of the army as well. So if that happens and both are in the same field, I think we may have some kind of a move forward and approach between the two countries.
Vice President Rong Ying, let me go to you. As a Chinese scholar, how do you look at the changes in the Pakistani government?
Well, I think certainly the Chinese government and scholars, academic community, friends of Pakistan are watching, following the developments with great sort of sympathy and good wishes that the political sort of situation will stabilize and the negative fallout would be as less as possible. So we are happy to notice that the process has now calmed down, and we're also very much pleased, I think, by listening Senator Hussein's sort of briefing about what is happening now after this political sort of episode. All in all, I think Chinese, as good friend, closest friend of Pakistan, are wishing them well and is ready to help wherever possible and whenever necessary.
Vice President Rong, a quick follow-up. Do you expect any changes at all between China-Pakistan relations?
No, absolutely not. I think the China-Pakistan relationship over the past decades have now enjoyed a kind of unprecedented level of privilege and feature that whatever happens, the relationship would not affect. Rather, it would become another opportunity to further deepening and strengthening the relationship. So it is a tested friendship. It is an all-weather friendship. It is a friendship that has not been affected by the past changes, and it would continue to, I think, carry forward as the congratulatory messages by Chinese Premier Li Keqiang to Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif, and also I think in the meetings between the acting Chinese ambassador and to the Prime Minister himself has said.
Yeah, it is certainly a relationship that's tested by evolving geopolitical events. Ambassador Trigunayat, let me go to you. The Ukraine crisis has shown a similarity in the foreign policies of three countries, namely China, India, and Pakistan. They had their differences, especially among China and India-Pakistan, when it comes to their foreign policy approaches. But this time around, we do see that all three countries refuse to toe the Western line of condemning and sanctioning Russia. Do you think there could be, new bonding, if you will, between the three as they now see how effective their similar responses have been in withstanding Western pressure?
Well, I doubt that there can be a trilateral approach because there have been fundamental differences in when India took its position, or for that matter, China or Pakistan took their position. There are nuances in approaches. India had a principled approach and has been against any external intervention, military intervention, and throughout the history it has opposed it. That is the one thing. Secondly, India also has a special and privileged partnership with Russia, but at the same time has a comprehensive global strategic partnership with the United States. So India is trying and standing for peace, dialogue, diplomacy, sovereignty, and territorial integrity, and has been, and Prime Minister Modi has spoken to both President Zelensky and President Putin several times and asking them to cease the hostilities and come to the dialogue, come to the table, and India is ready to do so. Even now, to provide whatever possibilities are there, and is helping Ukraine as well by providing assistance during this period. And as you know, that we had more than 20,000 Indians who were stuck there and they had to be evacuated. So India's position has been principled position in that sense of the term, and I would say a position of sanity. Yes, of course, we don't toe any line of anybody, as you know, forever. This is the India's position, but at the same time, I think that when Foreign Minister Wang Yi visited India recently, he had discussions with India's Foreign Minister Dr. Jaishankar, and they discussed this, and both sides agreed that dialogue and diplomacy are the only way forward. So I think to that extent, all countries must stand for peace and must try to bring about some kind of sanity in this war.
Yeah, thank you for your perspectives on all this. Mr. Rong, I have a similar question for you. How do you see the China, India, and Pakistan triangular relationships evolving now that there is a new government in Pakistan?
Well, certainly I think the relationships among the three countries, the bilateral ones, have some implication or would impact the one way or another. But as a scholar, I always hesitate to draw a hyphenation, to hyphenate this relationship. But because from the Chinese perspective, its relationship with Pakistan and its relationship with India are all based on different merits for different sort of rationale. And with I think the ongoing changes, geopolitical changes, changing dynamic in the region and beyond, from the Chinese perspective, China would wish to continue to pursue and develop its relationship with India, with Pakistan, respectively. And of course, as a scholar, I understand there are some connections, but I would say that that connections is not based on a kind of any geopolitical agenda. Rather, it is based on the reality, based on the history. And on the question of Ukraine, I think the three countries do share some similarities, convergences on how this conflict that has been, what is the root causes of the conflict and what was the way out of that. And I fully agree with the Indian colleagues, the panelists from India, the ambassador, that this conflict has to be resolved through political means. It has to, resolved through dialogue and diplomacy. And in this regard, China, India, and Pakistan can coordinate or can work together at least to make our positions loud and clear to the international community, the United States, the West, the Europe in particular.
There are a whole lot of common stakes wherever and whenever you look at this relationship or relationships. Ambassador Trigunayat, Pakistan was an ally of the U.S. during the war, the so-called war on terror. We all know that. But now Mr. Han says it was a U.S. conspiracy that removed him from office. On the other hand, despite historical closeness with Russia, India is now a strategic partner of the U.S. in the Quad. Could this new security equation create a problem in the region? Specifically, could this heighten tensions between India, China, and Pakistan?
Well, one thing you have to understand that Pakistan loves alliances. It was a part of the CENTO, it was a part of the US alliance, it was a part of the non-NATO. It is a non-NATO ally of the United States. It's extremely close. So it likes to have big brothers as its protectors, so to say. So that is its policy. As far as India is concerned, I think that India does not like alliances. In fact, it prefers to have alignments, and that's why trilateral efforts. As far as Quad, you mentioned, that Quad for India, as you know, my Prime Minister had spoken at Shangri-La and has been conveyed several times to our Chinese colleagues that it has nothing to do with containment of China. So therefore, there is no question. It is basically is for, not against. It is for the international order. It is for a free and open Indo-Pacific. It is for creating synergies among those four countries, because India is also trying to work out on its own global value and supply chains, in which there are, as you can see, those who know that when you read the statement of the spirit of Quad, which is called, there were 3 or 4 areas that are very important for India's own personal requirements. So this is what I feel, that we are not looking at a conflictual kind of an approach. So I doubt very much, of course, if there are problems in the region, and if those happen, for that I think all countries, including China, must attempt to have a situation where we don't have any conflicts.
Well, I would argue that Pakistan, was, like it or not, an ally of the United States in terms of the funding it gets from the U.S. and also the level of terrorism threat it faces, before, during, and after the so-called war on terror. In fact, Pakistan suffered more casualties than any other country during the war on terror. You can ask those Pakistanis living in Punjab about the fact of U.S. drone attacks, which I did some 10 years ago when I was there. Mr. Rong Ying, do you want to respond to what the ambassador has said?
Well, yeah, that's exactly, I think, the point where the debate or the narrative of counterterrorism should be understood. I think Pakistan has been the frontline state in counterterrorism, and Pakistan has been the victims for terrorism, and Pakistan has been making sacrifice and contributions along the line. That has to be really appreciated and understood. In the meantime, I understand that Pakistan itself is under the threat of radicalism, terrorism, and the international community, the United States and others, the regional countries, should help Pakistan to develop that capability, and more importantly, I think, to manage, to address the fallout of that development. That is, I think, something China and the regional countries and the international community should do. And that is, of course, another important area when I think the regional country, international community, when dealing with whoever sits in Islamabad, whoever becomes the prime minister.
Mr. Rong Ying, sorry to cut you, and Ambassador Trigunayat, I'm afraid that's all the time we have. This is a live broadcast, but do come back again next time. We do appreciate your perspectives. I'm Wang Guan in Beijing. Thank you for watching The Hub on CGTN. Our news coverage continues. Bye and take care.